He hasn't shifted to being president in the way that people are used to. He should stop saying things that aren't true, that are distractions from the task at hand.
Can you be a street fighter on all things all the time and still be a good president?
Is he getting in the way of his own agenda?
Yeah, totally. At the end of the day, he's got a good agenda, but this does get in the way of it.
He had to stop doing it, and we'll have to see what happens. It's one of the few things that I think has brought Republicans and Democrats together.
Unlike others, I'd tell him to tweet more, to be on Facebook more, to get the message out more, but to be focused. Focused on why this health care, Obamacare has to be replaced. Focus on what the better alternative is. Focus on the need for tax reform to get Americans working. Focus on why your administration is doing good things.
From the men cast aside by Donald Trump's presidential juggernaut last year, some unsolicited advice about his Twitter habit, with some of them motivated, no doubt, by a desire at this point to see him succeed. Let's bring in our panel. Steve Hayes, editor-in-chief for the Weekly Standard; Mollie Hemingway, senior editor at The Federalist; Charles Lane, opinion writer for The Washington Post; and syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer, respected colleagues all. Mollie, is the tweeting getting in the way of the agenda, yes or no?
Well, I think it's actually just completely the wrong question. You can look at these tweets and you can enjoy them, you can shake your head at them or roll your eyes at them. If you feel the need to denounce them, that's fine. But the reaction that we see, which is just sort of this mass hysteria in response to them, it actually kind of enables this tweeting. But the president has a lot of goals. One of them would be to get the media distracted from its Russia conspiracy obsession. So these types of tweets actually serve that function. He also talks about other things in his tweets that don't get the same amount of coverage. He talked this week about, today even, about the economy and other things that you don't see the same level of interest by the media.
Well, let's rectify that right now. We have a few of the president's most recent tweets. Saturday morning at 6:41, or excuse me, that was 6:40 in the evening, brought us, "My use of social media is not presidential. It's modern day presidential. Make America great again." Today's tweets saw him pretty strictly focused, at least for a while, on policy, saying, "We'll be speaking with Germany and France this morning. Spoke yesterday with the King of Saudi Arabia about peace in the Middle East. Interesting things are happening. We'll be speaking with Italy this morning." And then came the next in the series. "At some point, the fake news will be forced to discuss our great jobs numbers, strong economy, success with ISIS, the border, and so much else." Steve Hayes.
Well, I mean, I think sometimes there's a temptation to overanalyze this stuff and to suggest that it's normal. It's not normal. I mean, what the president tweeted the other day, the silly tweet about the wrestling, it's not normal. It's childish. It's silly. It's immature. What he tweeted about Mika Brzezinski, it's not normal. It's silly. People shouldn't be afraid to call that out when they see it.
Is it destructive?
I mean, I don't know if it's destructive, it's distracting. I mean, certainly if you talk to people on Capitol Hill, if you talk to people who are Trump supporters, not just his former rivals, presidential candidate rivals, Trump supporters on Capitol Hill and elsewhere, they will tell you that it's distracting to have the president doing this. Every time he does this, it pushes Republicans who he needs to do things like tax reform and health care, pushes him further away. They don't want to be responsible for him. They don't want to have to defend him on stuff like this. And I think they're sick of saying, well, this kind of thing is unacceptable, but I'm for him on health care.
Mark Short, who handles legislative affairs for the White House, spoke with John Roberts, who was sitting in for Chris Wallace on Fox News Sunday, about whether all these tweets are, in fact, obstructing the president's own legislative agenda.
Does he make your job more difficult with what he does?
Look, John, I don't recall during the presidential campaign many members in Congress being excited by the president's tweets, and he won the campaign. The president knows that he needs to get around the mainstream media to get his story out, and part of that story is actually what we've accomplished on Capitol Hill.
Chuck Lane, how much Machiavellian forethought should we ascribe to the president in all of these tweets? Is there a strategy behind it, or it's just impulsive behavior?
I don't think the tweets are getting in the way of the agenda. I think the tweets are the agenda. I think this is his personal agenda. He is involved in a personal battle with CNN, with some other elements of the media that he regards as too critical, and he's sick of it. He's sick of taking this stuff from them, and so his view is, I'm just going to fight back. I'm going to call them names, and I'm going to, do that.
Is it well advised?
Obviously not, as all these people have been protesting right now on air. Look, it's not just publicly they're saying that he should knock it off. They're privately, screaming, wringing their hands that this is a huge disaster, because whether it furthers his agenda in policy or not, it's embarrassing because it lacks class, and because it's not just unpresidential, it's not worthy of like high school student council president. So it does beg the question of, if it's so obviously counterproductive, why does he pursue it? And that's why I say it is his agenda. It's very important to him. He thinks it's more important than all the other stuff.
He calls it modern-day presidential. He warned us, he gave us a bit of a hint back in December when he visited that plant, the Carrier plant in Indianapolis, that not everything he was going to do was going to be presidential per se.
You know, during speeches I'd say, they say it's not presidential to call up these massive leaders of business. I think it's very presidential. And if it's not presidential, that's okay. That's okay.
Is it okay, Charles, if it's not presidential?
Well, it depends what it is. If it's meeting with a business leader, big deal. But if it is the kind of impulsive stuff he's been putting out, of course it's not. And it is embarrassing, and it is a kind of psychological need. You have the sense that if they succeeded in stopping him from tweeting, it's like putting a cork in the bottle, he would implode. This is the way in which he conducts himself, in which he stabilizes himself psychologically, I would guess, looking from the outside. And it's not the fact that he tweets. For God's sake, the Pope tweets. There's nothing wrong with tweeting intrinsically. It's what you tweet. And Kellyanne Conway's right. 3/4 of what he tweets is about policy and what he's doing. That's fine, but then why does he do the other quarter? I mean, I think he's trolling the press. The CNN bit I found rather amusing. It was meant to drive them crazy, to get an overreaction, to get attention, and to sort of heighten the contradictions, if you want to use a Leninist term, between him and the press, or his adversaries in the press, and solidify his base. So there's some strategy here, not much. The rest is a psychological need, and who knows? Perhaps this is therapy for him.
Molly Hemingway.
It's not just that he has the media as his adversary. It's the entire establishment. And you listen to people say, this isn't normal, this isn't presidential, this is destructive to his agenda. People don't like it who are Republicans. And what I don't think people realize is that's the point, and that's what a lot of people like. He was elected by the American electorate in part because he's not going to operate the same way. We have really reached far past the point where we come to terms with the fact that this man is not a politician who is president. This is the first time we've had a politician, or had a president who wasn't a politician or a military leader, and he's going to communicate that way. And this like constant reaction to the tweets as if we're surprised that Donald Trump was elected president, that made sense in November. I don't know if it makes sense in June or July.
You know, someone on my Twitter feed, let's see, David Galloway, wrote to me because we led off the show by saying some supporters of President Trump urge him to stop tweeting, but he seems committed to fireworks. Supporters not happy with POTUS tweeting. 450,000 likes of the CNN video, second most ever. Charles.
I'd submit to you that if Barack Obama had tweeted video of Barack Obama body slamming a figure with the Fox News logo in place of its head, those 450,000 people would not have clicked like. They probably would have clicked something that said, you know, impeach. There's such a double standard about this, honestly, about, as Kevin Corker pointed out, Trump himself mocked and ridiculed Obama for like walking the wrong way on the stairs. There's just really no argument here.
The double standard is with how the media treated Barack Obama. Barack Obama actually was pretty hostile to press freedom, and many people in the media didn't flip out over it, didn't overreact. The media did not hold him accountable for anything that he was doing, whether it was the IRS scandal or various other scandals. And so you have the people who are very frustrated with the media. This isn't really about Trump or Barack Obama.
And so
it's
that
about frustration with the
of
media.
some people about the media justifies the president lowering himself and behaving at this debased level. I don't agree with that.
The question is, do you let the media continue to run roughshod over the values of so many people in this country, where they've been portrayed horribly for decades by a media that...
I want to give the last word to Steve Hayes.
There's no question there was a double standard with Barack Obama. I mean, he was treated, he was given elevated stature by the media. They didn't fact-check him the way they ought to have fact-checked him. There's no doubt about that. But it doesn't justify or make right or normalize the kinds of of things that President Trump is
Republicans are
doing.
just supposed to put up with it and keep putting up with it no matter what.
No, but there are better ways to fight media bias than
what are they? Because people have been working on it for
out.
decades, and it hasn't been working.
To call them out, to actually challenge
Successful
them on a
legislation.
fact-based thing, rather than tweeting out. I mean, you may think that it's effective to tweet out a WWE video and get people excited about it. I don't think that's a very effective way to win an argument. It's a nanny-nanny boo-boo way to win an argument.